Hello, one and all, and welcome back to another look at some Kamen Rider Revice episodes. We have 3 episodes to look at because I decided to combine episode 5 and 6 into one video, but was not feeling well, and now we have to add episode 7 on there too. So, yeah. So without further ado, let's get into the episodes in question. So this is episode 5, The World Reforming Rider, Who is the Traitor? So this episode starts up with someone in Phoenix actually stealing 2 Vice stamps. One is the Lion Vice stamp that's used in this episode, and the other is the Kong Vice stamp that was recovered in I want to say last week's episode, but that was 3 weeks ago. Episode 4. Anyway, Phoenix is basically trying to figure out who exactly did this, and then we cut to the Ishirugi bathhouse because they live at the bathhouse because their house is a joint to it. Which the father again has set up a new service to increase the number of people to subscribe to his YouTube channel. He's basically going to have people come by the hot spring and basically tell Ikki about their problems as a way of gathering information and trying to root out, more Deadman followers, because, the more episodes pass, the more this seems like a cult instead of just being random people that get drafted, and it seems more like a cult by the episode, and I kind of love that. But anyway, they're trying to use it to gather information on potential Deadmen or Deadman followers, or people who just have Vice stamps. And at first it looks like a bust because, a bunch of people rush in, and so Ikki spends most of the day hearing everyone's complaints. And when they just finish up, him and Sakura just finish up, and he's kind of complaining about all that because it basically was useless. An old man walks in as he's wondering or worried about his grandson. And said grandson, whose name I forget and don't really care to look up, he is actually a YouTuber, similar to Gin, who is going into a company to expose it as a black company. For those of you who don't know, black companies are essentially companies that extort labor or force their workers to do various things. Basically just not good companies. And considering the whole overwork, death by overwork is a thing in Japan, these black companies are considered like the worst of the worst types of companies to work for, because you'll never have a moment off, because you'll always be working and doing hell shit. Anyway, so he's come to expose the company as a black company because it's apparently a holiday in universe and everyone should have the day off, but everyone's working, and so he decides to attack the director. Now you think just one random kid wouldn't be a threat, but he actually has a Vice stamp. He received it on the street from somebody. It wasn't the standard Deadman, here's a Vice stamp thing. He didn't go to the club hangout, and he has the Lion Vice stamp too, so that proves he's connected to the traitor. Ikki rushes to the scene as soon as he gets his hands on the company president, and it's a quick fight, and even the Deadman comments on how he's pretty useless as a sacrifice. It seems weird because they mentioned last time that most people can only form Gift Juniors, or barely just form Gift Juniors, the mooks of the season. So you think someone who could form a full-on Deadman would be more valuable, but I guess even if you could form a Deadman, if it's just a weak little Deadman, it won't amount to much in the end anyway, because the lion goes down quite easily, actually pretty quickly. And then Ikki has the wrap-up with the son, or grandson, and the grandson and grandfather have a moment. It's honestly pretty sweet. And I remember that we're only halfway through the episode, and this episode is supposed to be about a traitor. I'm like, wait a second, what? Yeah, the second half of the episode is basically a Phoenix operation to root out said traitor. They plan to use the kid, again, I'm not even going to bother looking up his name, as bait, because he's going to do a fake apology video. So, like most apology videos, where he is going to attempt to destroy the Vice stamp, or at least a fake Vice stamp, so that he can basically lure out the traitor. So they do the plan, which Ikki is opposed to because it puts him in danger and doesn't like that, but they don't have a choice. And the dead men show up, Osalato and Julio. I don't know how to pronounce Otessa's name that great. And we also find out what dead men they are. Otalessa is the... I'm never going to bother trying to pronounce that, but it's basically another word for squid. Because he's the squid dead man, and Julio is the wolf dead man. And it begs the question because they didn't use their Vice stamps to transform before, and considering the fact that apparently they only just got their hands on the Vice stamps, about did they need the Vice stamps to transform into dead men originally, or basically exactly how they work. Is still a gigantic mystery, but it's only like now it's episode 8 coming up, but it's still only episode 5 in this episode, so there's still plenty of time to explain the fucks with the dead men, or specifically with these two dead men, who at some point might have been human from evidence, from these 3 episodes in particular. Anyway, it's a pretty cool fight. Revice uses the lion form, which is the Kuga tribute form, and he actually manages to take out the squid. I'm just gonna stop trying to pronounce his name for now and come back to that subject later. He manages to take him out, but as soon as he defeats him, a new rider dressed in black enters the field and basically just takes out Vice and just leaves Revy by himself. And then the squid reforms himself out of ink like he's a fucking inkling. And I kind of like that. And the episode just ends. Yeah, it just ends here. Like, the entire trailer was all about this rider who's Kamen Rider Evil showing up. And he's the eponymous traitor. But he's barely in... He's like in the last 5 minutes of the episode. And it feels really bizarre. But, we'll be getting into that by the end, because let's talk about the next episode. Alright, it's time for episode 6... Evil's True Identity. Shocking showtime. And honestly, with a title like that, you'd think this would be the episode where we get the wizard tribute form. But no, we don't even get really... Technically, we don't get a new form in this episode. I mean, we do, but we don't. It's weird. I'll explain when we get to it. But anyway, this follows up with last week's, or the last episode that I just finished talking about, with Evil walking in and stomping on Revice, as is tradition. It is tradition. So he just beats the two and then leaves. Like, just no reason. He just beats them and leave. And even they're kind of confused about what the fuck was that. But yeah, when he's leaving, we find out who he is, and it's Daiji. Well, is and isn't Daiji. It will be explained at the end of the episode, but the traitor is Daiji, who actually was given his new driver, which I don't know what it's called. They haven't really said what it is in the show, but George basically figured him out. We saw this in like last week's episode, where basically George was just kind of watching him. He was just kind of watching him in a way, in like a weird way. So yeah, he was watching him, like observing him, and figured him out. And I just focused so much on the he was watching him part that it's kind of awkward now. And basically figured him out and gave him his new transformation belt, which is also a sword, and I'm having saber flashbacks. According to the wiki, it's called the Evil Blade. It's very similar to... I kind of want to say it's very similar to the saber, to the saber henshin devices, but I'm not sure, because we haven't actively seen him use it. Like, we've seen him use it in Gamba Rising, but not in the actual show. So I'll leave comments on the Evil Blade as a henshin device till later. As a sword, it looks kind of awkward, but that's just kind of what I expect. Anyway, with Rayla, we get new fucking transformation devices every other episode, so, we got our new transformation device. And, yeah, he just leaves. And so, the rest of the episode, despite the episode being supposedly about evil, the rest of the episode focuses on Ikki getting involved with these two siblings. One, the older sibling, is trying to get someone to help her brother because the person who hit him in a hit-and-run accident is getting off free from jail by a lawyer. And this isn't like, maybe there were some extenuating circumstances. This was apparently a very open and shut case, but the lawyer who's defending him is basically doing some malicious shit that might involve the dead men, and by might, I mean totally involves the dead men, to get them off. As we find out later in the episode, he holds the kangaroo vice stamp, and is basically using his dead men to intimidate witnesses into not showing up to court. Classic mob tactic rules. Classic mob tactics when it comes to, court and shit. Just witness intimidation. And basically, it's kind of interesting because Ikki and him face off in person, and he uses Vice to basically case the joint, and honestly pretty if this episode does anything right, is that they find really clever ways to use Vice, or Vice's intangibility, or how Vice interacts with technology, to basically one, find out that the dude has a Vice stamp, and two, get the evidence to prove he has said Vice stamp, because basically, even though Ikki is technically a Phoenix operative and they're technically law enforcement, he doesn't really have a search warrant to do an actual search of the premises. So he can't just make him open the safe because he doesn't have a warrant. But now that he has the evidence, he can't actually get him arrested. But after the fight with the kangaroo dead man, which Ikki uses basically rapid transformations, and he uses the decayed megalodon shark form for the first time, but he quickly switches into the lion form after using it to just do one rush attack, and I find it kind of funny. He defeats the kangaroo dead man, but the Vice stamp isn't on the lawyer anymore. But Ikki does one, know he held it, and two, has evidence that he's at least benefiting from a dead man, or at least a dead man's abilities. Would you think that would be grounds for arrest already? Because we've seen Phoenix hold people who didn't have the Vice stamp, but were still colluding with the dead men in a way, like the kidnapper in episode 3. But the lawyer's just allowed to leave, even though we know we have the evidence to actually arrest him, at least on witness intimidation. But he just leaves, and I'm just like, okay, how did that work? Just because he doesn't have it on him? Basically, everyone's led to believe that his client has the Vice stamp now, but the police track him down and he doesn't. Well, Phoenix tracks him down and he doesn't. So it turns out the judge was actually in on it, and is also apparently a member of the Dead Man's cult, because he also does the whole Gracias Dead Man thing. It's interesting because they actually had a comedy bit earlier in the episode where Ikki uses the sleight of hand technique on Vice, and so Vice is like, "Oh, that lawyer had the same face you did," and now it's Icky's clue that the dude was using the sleight of hand in a way and trying to make the obvious person holding the bait not not the person holding the bait. It turns out it was the judge who was presiding over the court case. So Ikki comes in and basically gets both of them arrested for possession of a Vice stamp, basically, because now they have both of them. And that's how the episode ends. Well, not really, because we have one final twist in the episode where Daiji walks up to the dead man's club/base, but it's actually not Daiji, and it's not a twin situation either. He's not a secret fourth Igarashi sibling. No, he is Kagero, Daiji's demon that was born within him and can possess his body. He is the true Kamen Rider Evil, born from... We'll talk about that in the next part of this video. But yeah, we end the episode on this honestly rather shocking and somewhat out of nowhere reveal, which is kind of cool in its own way. And finally, to end this trilogy of episodes that I'm behind on, episode 7, Theft Skateboard I'm Kagero, and this title feels like a word salad, basically, but that's the official title of the episode. Anyway, this episode starts off with a robbery being committed by a group of kids who are using parkour to escape from the cops. And obviously, as they are a bunch of kids using parkour, they are inevitably basically routed into a corner where the cops can arrest them, or one is about to be taken in because he missed the jump. And he's saved by a fourth member of the group who is a dead man. In particular, he is the cheetah dead man. And he's a phase 2 dead man, you know, the ones where they merge with their demons and give up their physical forms, or their human forms. He's a stage 2 cheetah dead man. And this is all footage that's being shown to Ikki because they need to come up with a new plan to corner and capture/defeat the dead man. Their plan is to have him use a Jackal genome or Jackal Vice stamp, but Vice is opposed to it because he doesn't like the form that Jackal gives him. So he basically yells at George about it, and George basically acts all huffy and doesn't let them have the Jackal Vice stamp anyway. Meanwhile, we cut to we really just cut back to the house because Daiji's acting really suspicious, and we know why, because he's being possessed by Kagero. Or this last week's episode. I don't remember. They're blending into each other now. Anyway, Hiromu actually finds Daiji in his Kagero clothes, because I didn't mention it, but Kagero has a completely different outfit from regular Daiji, who has his standard outfit in his Phoenix uniform. For those of you who don't remember, Hiromu is the dude from episode 1 who accidentally unleashed the Rex dead man when he attempted to transform but failed. Anyway, he finds him and is suspicious, and we know that Phoenix is well aware that Daiji's a traitor, but they basically say that we're just going to let this be on standby for now because we don't know how to proceed. I don't know if they know about Kagero, or if maybe only George knows about Kagero, but they know that Daiji's a traitor or something like that. Anyway, they come up with the second plan to corner the kids, and it leads to a fight between Revice and the dead man. It's a pretty close fight. Well, not even. It's a decent fight, but obviously he can't keep up with the speed of the dead man, and so it just runs away after taunting him. And so basically Ikki tries to narrow down the kids' identities using one of the regulars at the bathhouse. And I'm going to be honest, I love the fact that the bathhouse regulars are being kind of interwoven into the plot as assistants. Like, it's weird that that at least one of them has better information gathering than Phoenix does, but I don't mind that, if only because it reminds me of the Futoa regulars back in Double, who were also significant yet insignificant side characters who were just kind of fun to have around. Anyway, back to the plot, or the episode. We cut to Daichi, who's wandering around the streets kind of in a daze, and he finds himself stuck in an alley where he talks to his own reflection and meets Kagero, who basically says that he is Daiji's demon, born from Daiji's desire to destroy his brother Ikki. And I wonder if this is potentially related to the thing with the photograph where Ikki was faded out of the photo by something. At first I believed it might have been the Revice system, but it could have just been Kagero's power in a way, whatever that power is. But yeah, his ultimate goal is to get rid of Ikki, and so yeah, that's kind of fucked. Little kid and Abel up here. So anyway, they come up with Ikki finds out the identity of at least the kids connected to the dead man, but it turns out the fourth one isn't a kid, but one of the kids' fathers. As when they go to turn themselves in for all the crimes, the dad of the third one, the one who fell at the beginning, comes in and tries to bust his kid out of jail. Well, he's not even in jail yet. He busts through the jail to get to his kid. And then Ikki shows up to basically give him a talking to about, being a father. He was apparently in an accident and was hospitalized, which is why he decided to just say fuck it and go straight to stage 2 instead of letting his dead man wander about. This leads to a fight that obviously Icky's having trouble with, and it gets even worse when Evil shows up, basically wandering in like he's fucking Gim in the earlier episodes of X-Aid. And this Evil reminds me so much right now of how Gim was in the early X-Aid episodes, just like popping the fuck in out of nowhere and just wrecking house before leaving. Is anyone else catching on to that, or is that just me? Anyway, they fight, but then Hiromu comes in, hands Icky the Jackal genome, or Jackal Vice Amp, and then uses the Demon's driver, that weird driver that we've been seeing early throughout the series since, like, I want to say episode 3, that Daiji at first wanted to use. He uses that to transform into Kamen Rider Demons, who, I'll talk about him in a second because I want to talk about Evil and Demons as the new riders and their suits. And so Icky uses the Jackal genome and transforms into the X8 tribute form, which is also a Tony Hawk joke because he uses a skateboard. Our Vice becomes a skateboard, and then he just wrecks the cheetah dead man. And it's weird because, like, okay, so skateboard fighting only really works, and this is just a personal preference to me, or a personal observation, it only really works in fully animated environments, because at some point during the fight, you're definitely going to have to switch to CGI. Unless you're like top tier CGI, it's going to look kind of awkward. And though the fight is cool on paper, it still looks kind of awkward with the switch to CGI for the actual skateboard, for like the actual fight parts of the skateboarding parts. I mean, fight parts of the skateboard fight part. It's weird. It's weird to say that all out loud like that. But yeah, this is obviously a form that's not going to be used a lot. In fact, I think it's going to stop being used after this episode from the next episode preview, with that one saying. But yeah, the fight with Demons and Evil is much cooler, and Demons is basically Spider-Man and shoots webs and all kinds of shit. And Hiromu basically trying to figure out if he's Daiji, as, you know, he says that as a member of Phoenix, it's his responsibility to stop Daiji if Daiji is the one being evil. Pun. But Evil gets away, and the episode ends with George basically being George. And how basically being kind of very suspicious because they might know that Daiji is in fact evil. This is going to get awkward to keep saying, but they might know he's the Kamen Rider Evil, or at least they should know he's Kamen Rider Evil because he gave him the belt, and how they wonder how Icky's going to handle that when that revelation drops, maybe next episode. So, yeah. Let's talk about these episodes. Okay, so I'm just going to refer to these sets of episodes as the Evil Quadrilogy, because it's not over yet, because episode 8 definitely is going to involve Evil in some way, shape, or form. So how do they stack up? Revice hasn't had a bad episode yet. All the Revice episodes have all been pretty good so far. And as I stated earlier, Evil reminds me a lot of how Gim was back before we even know his name was Gim. We just kept calling him Black X-Aid. I wasn't watching Kamen Rider at the time when Gim premiered, but when I watched those initial episodes, he just kind of walked in off screen and was like, who the fuck is this? It was that kind of reaction from me. But yeah, it reminds me of Gim in a fun way, and the fact that he just kind of rolls up, doesn't say a word, and just leaves. Just wrecks shop and leaves. And it's like, okay, this is going somewhere, but I just don't know where. And I kind of love it. Like, I kind of love that he just kind of just walks in, just fights people, and just leaves. I don't know why. It's just kind of something I just love. Even though we know Kagero is kind of not that type, or at least he's trying to make a surprise for Icky just to fuck with him. I don't, because Ikki, or at least Kagero, really wants to destroy Ikki for some reason, because of Daiji's desire to destroy his brother for some reason. Which, again, may or may not be related to the photo thing from episode... I won't say episode 4, yeah, episode 4. It was literally the episode before Evil premiered. Speaking of Evil, I like Evil's suit. It's simple in, like, the best way, and the eyes are pretty interesting because they look like they're more painted onto the suit instead of the more pop-out eyes that are more standard for Kamen Rider. It looks like they're more ingrained visors, similar to more of a Sentai-style suit. I meant suit. It's a Sentai-style helmet. The rest of the suit is pretty cool. He definitely looks like he takes the bug inspiration. Or at least he has, like, the Hercules beetle horn, which reminds me of Blade. But he uses the bat vice stamp. Maybe he can grow bat wings to do some bat attacks, but I don't know yet. And then we have Demons, who has the spider theme. As I stated in the episode, he spins webs and does Spider-Man stuff. He even hangs upside down and spins webs to trap Evil for 5 seconds. And again, it's a pretty cool fight. And Demons is pretty cool. He has a pretty cool look, and I like him. And he definitely is a Spider-Man suit. And I think this is an intentional reference to Spider-Man. The Toku Spider-Man that... okay, so I don't exactly remember dates, but I know he premiered before the original Kamen Rider series. But I don't know if he premiered before Super Sentai did. I just know the mech premiered before Super Sentai started getting their mechas. So Leopardon is technically the very first Super Sentai mech. And Spider-Man might be the very first Kamen Rider unintentionally. And I like this kind of weird crossover between the two. And because of legal reasons, he is currently owned by Disney. And that makes me sad, because I imagine Toei would be like, hey, we want to reboot this and make a movie, and then just have some random director host it. Because that honestly sounds like it would be a cool idea, just to do a Spider-Man reboot in a way. But the legal limbo he exists in is just kind of sad. Anyway, for those of you who don't know, obviously Evil being the bat and Demons being the spider are a reference to I believe they're the first 3 kaijin that the original Kamen Rider Ichigo, or just Kamen Rider Ichigo, fought in his series, debuting with the spider. Like, the first episode of Kamen Rider, I believe it's called Enter the Spider-Man, or Man-Spider, because I think they have to call it Man-Spider for legal reasons. Despite I think the translation being actually Spider-Man, but obviously they can't call it that because of the legal reasons. But anyway, this isn't even the first time we've had riders based on these 3 animals. I mean, obviously there was there was Knights and Ryuki, who was obviously based off bats. There was also Oja in that series, who was based off cobras. They didn't have a spider guy, though, so they couldn't fulfill the whole trinity. The only series I can remember that has the full trilogy... Wait, Blade... Did Blade come out after Ryuki? No, it was 5, then Blade, because Blade had the spider guy. Or had a spider rider. Oh, God. I just remembered that show existed. Anyway, the only series I can remember having a full trinity of a bat, a spider, and cobra, specifically a cobra, was Build with Evolt, Mad Rogue, and generally just Rogue in general, because Rogue also had the bat motif, and Kilobus, because they also were a cobra, bat-themed, and spider-themed rider, Spider-themed rider relatively. I wonder if we're going to get the Cobra in the inevitable Revice V cinema, or if maybe Revice himself will get a Cobra form, or if we're just going to have a third rider roll up with a Cobra motif. Just as interesting thoughts. It's also interesting because Demons also got the Bata Vice stamp from, again, episode 2, so he can also have a form based off the original Ichigo, because apparently the Bata Vice stamp is based on the original Ichigo, at least from promo stuff, apparently. I mean, obviously, because, Ichigo and them are based off like mantises, I believe. Not sure. And I know Double is, but in this series, Double got the eagle. Uh, it's kind of funny because I'll talk about that next week when we get to it too. But it's just kind of funny in the hindsight. But yeah, I like evil and I like demons. The only problem I have is the weird kind of episodes. Like, we believe one thing's going to happen and the whole episode's about something else entirely. It's mainly just the episode previews' fault. And I can understand why people wouldn't watch them if they're kind of misleading like this, especially with the titles. But, I don't mind. I also like the fact that the series is, for the most part, getting away from the standard 2-episode formula that most Kamen Rider does. Like, I know it'll probably go back to it later on, but I like the fact that we're getting episodes that are more character today right now and are slowly fleshing out the plot as we go on. Speaking of slowly fleshing out the plot, Keguro, what the fuck? So we have basically we have like 3 ways demons work in this setting. We have demons like Vice that are almost literally the devils on people's shoulders that whisper in their ear, or in Vice's case, yell in Ikki's ear to try to convince him to do shit and just want to do evil shit until Ikki basically tames him. We have devils like the Dead Men, or demons like the Dead Men, who are summoned out of a host by the Vice stamps. So they're kind of like the regular Heartless compared to the Emblem Heartless. If you play Kingdom Hearts, how the regular Heartless are naturally formed from darkness itself, and the Emblemed Heartless are technically artificial Heartless that were created by shaping darkness into various different forms. It's just kind of weird to say because there's so many fucking Emblem Heartless. But yeah. So that's honestly a pretty fair comparison. And then we have Keguro. Keguro's Ansem. Okay, I'm kind of joking. By that I mean how Ansem, at least in KH1, kind of breaks the rules of how Heartless are supposed to work in that setting by being more humanoid, when apparently the stronger Heartless is, the less human it's supposed to look. He operates on nobody rules, basically, like where the more human a nobody looks, the stronger it's supposed to be. But can you tell I've been playing Smash Brothers? But in Keguro's case, he awakened inside of Daiji, and unlike Vice, who was shown whispering Ikki's ear, he doesn't, and he just straight up possesses Daiji and makes him go about his evil whims, which in this case is wrecking Ikki. So yeah, we have 3 ways to how demons work, and it makes me wonder, were the other dead men similar cases to Keguro, where they awakened in their human host, and then where they awakened into their human host and then eventually possessed them permanently as their current selves? It's an interesting idea, but I doubt it will be explained anytime soon until it gets close to like wiping out the generals, or whenever the true leader of Dead Men's Gifa awakens, and we can go on with that. But yeah, I like the episodes. They lead to some interesting ideas for how the series is going to go forward, and I am generally interested in what the Dead Men are up to. Like, the Dead Men are being pretty somewhat proactive villains. Like, they're not just sitting on the sidelines waiting, because they actually said one of their own. I think Julio to spy on Sakura because they recognize that Revice is kind of a pain in their butts and they want to get rid of him. And then Phoenix is being shady. So, yeah, I wonder what all this is going to lead to. And it all just looks interesting. Again, we have organization being shady, the villains being somewhat proactive in their ultimate goals, and we have Ikki basically in the middle of it all trying to figure out, hey, how do I protect my family and be a hero? Like, he's kind of over that, but he's still on that. Like, I'm pretty sure he'll be all over that once the Dead Men make their move on Sakura, which may or may not make her become a writer, because we have some set photo leaks, but I won't talk about those because they're leaks and not official releases, so we don't have any full stuff. But yeah, with that said, I'll see you all next time, hopefully on time next week. Till then, everybody.